1999, 21 years ago, a lot of shit happened. But what shit? Well, a lot of these movies came out about work and other stuff. I call these the fuck the office movies. You got a middle-aged white guy who hates his job and is going through a midlife crisis and tries to rebel against the system and all this other crap. These include Office Space, Fight Club, American Beauty, Ants, kinda, and the granddaddy of all movies, The Matrix. You can still see these today with Sorry to Bother You, which is definitely more leftist, anti-capitalist in nature. Not saying these 1999 movies aren't like that, but they kind of vary from movie to movie. Some tap into some actual social commentary, and others, you know, they just want to make you laugh, you know, like, haha, your life sucks, you can't do anything about it, poo-poo. Which is why I think it's funny that Falling Down, a movie about a middle-aged white guy who goes apeshit and tries to rail against the system, actually came out 6 years before these movies really took off. Because it almost feels like a parody. Falling Down is written by a guy named Ebro Smith, directed by a guy named Joel Schumacher, the man best known for giving Doug Walker a career. Unfortunately, while I was editing this review, Joel Schumacher actually passed away. He left a really good legacy, and he genuinely seemed like a very nice guy. At the time, reviews were alright, and it got a cult following. But nowadays, its message is getting more and more divisive. You got the AV Club saying it's a tone-deaf, self-pitying lament about the terrible persecution facing the oppressed majority in an era of political correctness and increasing multiculturalism. But you have more critics giving the praises of the film's hero, such as musician and film scholar Uncle Kracker, in a collection of essays known as I Love the 90s, Part 2.
They made him out to look like the bad guy, but I think in the end he was really a hero. He didn't do anything different than none of us want to do.
Both of these analyses can be accurate depending on how you view the actions of the main character, Defense, or William Foster, which is his real name, even though they call him Defense in the credits. So this begs the question, is Defense the hero of the... No, Defense is a violent psychopath. He is not a good man. He's a bad boy, not the kind your sister wants to date either. But he's sympathetic, because like many in the audience, he's a victim of a system that does not care about him. But is he really though? And if he is he really doing anything to stop it? I don't know. The movie starts out with Defense trying to rail against what many see as legit problems, at least in America, but they get less serious as the movie goes on. You begin with something mildly reasonable, like rage quitting LA traffic and beating the shit out of a Korean-owned grocery store because prices are too expensive. And you're like, yeah, inflation sucks, dude. Beat the shit out of those Twinkies. Then he lashes out at a gang that's trying to assault him, and then that same gang tries to kill him. Dude, not lit. Shoot that guy in the leg. Hell yeah! And then he gets annoyed when Whammy Burger stops serving breakfast. Okay, that's kind of annoying. And then he sees a protester talking about how he's not economically viable, and then he gets arrested for nothing. Aw shit, what's Defense gonna do to help this? He doesn't do anything, even though he's got a big bag of guns. Then he goes to the shop owned by a neo-Nazi and he sees him harassing a gay couple. Man, he's certainly at least uncomfortable with that. What's he gonna do? And he doesn't do anything. The neo-Nazi actually helps him hide from the cops. He only snaps at the neo-Nazi when he threatens to arrest him and smashes his daughter's snow globe. Oh, poor man. Then he blows up a road because he doesn't like how it's being constructed because the road was fine earlier and now they're only doing it to justify their inflated budget. This doesn't even make any sense. Then he scares a golfer to death, sort of harasses a family, harasses his own family, and then, yeah, he dies. The end. A lot of these later inconveniences are juxtaposed with real problems in society. Homelessness, gang violence, racism, AIDS basically being ignored. This is stuff that Defense doesn't really give a shit about. When the gang tries to gun him down, they actually end up hurting more members of the community that would usually be affected by gang violence. He just sort of walks by them, and when he shoots the gang member, he just walks away, not really to check and see if anyone's okay. Later, we see the woman who was with the gang being interrogated and basically prodded into giving a false confession, either because they don't believe it was a white guy or they want to excuse and pit it on a rival gang. Either way, this is an actual problem and Defense does not really seem to care. He just watches a protester getting arrested for standing up for his rights. He gets more mad at the Whammy Burger than he does at a neo-Nazi harassing the gay guys. In fact, he actually benefits from his white supremacy when he hides him from the cops and takes him back to show him his Nazi shrine. Defense only takes action when it personally affects him. He's not really trying to change society for the better in any other way. Before he does though, we get one of the most pivotal moments in the film. Pay attention guys, because this is some big brain work in action.
I'm with you. We're the same, you and me. We're the same, don't you see?
We are not the same.
Really though? We see Defense kind of racist toward a lot of minorities.
You come to my country, you take my money, you don't even have the grace to learn how to speak my language. Maybe wrote it in fucking English, I could fucking understand it.
To the point where you gotta ask yourself, were the more reasonable things he was railing against really just coded for something else? Like racism. After he shoots the neo-Nazi, he shoots his own reflection in the mirror. Get it? Then the next scene shows him dressed in a military uniform with a Nazi flag in the back, threatening his wife over the phone, saying he's crossed the point of no return.
Did you know, Beth, that in certain South American countries it's still legal to kill your wife if she insults you?
He didn't do anything different than none of us want to do.
I'm the bad guy? Yeah.
So what makes Defense likable? Why is he, to some people, the bee's knees? Well, some of his problems in the film are actually pretty understandable. There's a reason the most famous scene in the movie is the whammy burger scene. People want their fast food breakfast, man. I really hate fast food breakfast, so I don't really relate to this scene. Also, I worked at a Taco Cabana once, and there was a large amount of people who wanted stuff off the breakfast menu and legit got angry when I said we are not serving breakfast anymore, even though they showed up at 2:30 in the afternoon, which is way past the point of getting breakfast. Then they start yelling at me as if I'm some fucking HR representative who has the ability to talk to corporate headquarters whenever he wants. The movie is framed in a way that makes you feel like he's the misunderstood hero at first. When his ex-wife talks to the police about his restraining order, she comes off as kind of bitchy because she basically has no evidence against the guy other than that, he was angry all the time. Doesn't even hit her, man. What the fuck? This is just another problem in Defense's life. But then as the movie goes along, you start to realize, oh shit, this dude is actually crazy, and the cops aren't taking his ex-wife seriously at all. She's the real victim of the story. Now, I'm not trying to say everything that happens to this man is entirely his fault. One of the triggers of his breakdown is him getting fired from the Department of Defense. When I first saw this movie, I thought this was supposed to be a commentary on how the Department of Defense is beholden to the military-industrial complex. Another example of Defense not realizing he's part of the system that he thinks he hates. And while I think that's something to consider, there's a different reason that actually has more history to it. After the Cold War, there didn't really seem to be a strong need to keep building nuclear warheads. As a result, a lot of employees got yeeted out of the government and basically abandoned after years of service. So Defense, after years of protecting his country, gets forgotten about and treated worse than just some stupid plastic surgeon. So you get where he's coming from. But again, he's not doing anything about it. What events in this movie is him trying to right the wrong of him being fired? Nothing. The economically viable guy was at least protesting a bank, but what about the problems that are his fault? Later, when he watches VHS tapes that show him acting super aggressive towards his daughter, for a slight instance, there's a moment of regret. It's his fault that his family ran away from him, no one else's. But that moment of remorse disappears when he finds out his family is at the pier. No real arc. Again, juxtaposing it with a real problem. Defense can't see his daughter because of his anger problems. Sergeant Pendergast can't see his daughter because she's dead. Okay, so the Sergeant Pendergast, he's the cop that's trying to chase him, and there's a really boring subplot. It's really cliche, and it goes on for like 20 hours. Whatever. So yeah, there's a lot of subtle anti-establishment themes in this movie, but are they intentional? I honestly don't know, because Joel Schumacher, rest in peace, is not a subtle man. There's so much overacting in this goddamn movie. Some of these characters are just straight up cartoons.
This is my golf course. If I want to play here, I will play here.
And the symbolism is so obvious. You put a blue filter on this and bam, it's a Zack Snyder movie. But the Jesus symbolism does serve a purpose. Defense sees himself as some sort of martyr, standing up for whatever his own weird philosophy is. At the end of the movie, he sees him toying with the cop as some sort of sacrifice, as now his daughter can get his life insurance. That, or he just doesn't want to spend the rest of his life in jail. He sees his story as being completed. And that's why I think many see Defense as a hero. There's a lot of people who blame their troubles on minorities, ranting about shit that doesn't matter, wanting to return to the good old days. Some of these problems are legitimate, but you're protesting the wrong things. Seems like this country is heading for another economic brink, and it looks like people are getting pretty fed up with our current system of economic and racial injustice. There's going to be some people who call for change, and there's going to be some people that just want to build a more oppressive structure in its place. So, are we going to get a lot more Neos and Cassius Greens? Or are we going to get a lot more Tyler Durdens and Defenses? That's not the point of the video, so I don't care. Get out of here.